Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of StarSound Speaks. This is episode 190 with your host, Irlianna Samsara, with crazy hair. All right, so I just told, here, I just had my hair up. I'm like, no, I'm going to put it down. Then it was like this. So, okay, it's Venus in Leo coming off that trine with Jupiter. I know we all had such a good time this week. It helped the brightness, the bright light of Venus trine Jupiter, having a little fun in Leo, right? Leo rules the hair. So I'm getting wild and playful and crazy and socializing through big, right? Jupiter trine, big hair, big Leo hair. Anyway, I just hope I don't look like Texas bubble hairdo. No offense to anyone in Texas, but anyway. So, all right, here we are. This is this week's Astro for Sunday, the 21st through the 27th. And wow, busy week, all kinds of cool things going on. So, like I said, we're coming off that nice trine, which is, there's always an afterglow, even though it peaked like early in the early hours Eastern Standard Time on Thursday morning. As I was saying to my friend Holly, there's this afterglow. So it's like this beautiful, this nice, like you've just skied this amazing mountain, and or I guess in the fire signs, I should say, you went out and you enjoyed this amazing, fabulous party and dinner, and there's this afterglow of like, boy, wasn't that a great party? And and you're just still feeling it. So that's what we've been in, and now, but it'll really much be gone by the time this new week starts. But anyway, still fun. What we're moving into, we are also Sunday morning. It will peak. Mercury in the opposition. The last few days, Mercury opposition Neptune, and that is that's been interesting. It almost feels like a Mercury retrograde-ish kind of funkadoodle, right? Because Mercury in its domicile of Virgo, Neptune in its domicile of Pisces, right? And they're all right. Who's gonna win? But that Mercury, are we gonna confuse you? Or are we going to be clear? Well, how about both? And they're trying to work things out. And I know, and just a few weird, communications might be a little bit one way and then another. Here's a funny story that just happened. Remember how I squished my glasses and I showed you in the last couple of podcasts ago? And my I needed a new frames. My lenses were fine, but the frames are broken. So I got them in Costco, great prices, by the way. And I called up the guy, and I called the optical department. And they go, oh yeah, you'll have your things ready in just a few days. Well, the whole week passed, right? As we get more and more close into that opposition Neptune, like, gee, I haven't heard from them. A little missing communication in the fog of Neptune. And I just called them now, and they said, oh yeah, sorry, we see your order did come in, but we can't locate the frames. I'm like, okay, why can't you locate the frames? Well, sorry, we just had this remodeling, and we basically, he said, we can't find anything. So it's like, oh, thank you. I'm like, he goes, yeah, I'm really sorry, it's just been a mess. They're expanding the department and they can't find my dang glasses. So Mercury ruling the eyes. Of course, I thought that was very interesting. And here it is, the glasses get lost. So he has to order them all over again. But I know that Saturday, I'm recording this on Friday, August 19th. So tomorrow, Saturday, Mars goes into Gemini, but Mercury goes into shadow retrograde. So I'm like, hurry up, get those dang things, because I do not want to have any more eyeglass delays. So quick, get it done. So anyway, yes, he's going to do that, and fingers crossed they will be ready. He goes, oh, I don't want to take a few days. And I'm thinking, yeah, buddy, like, Mercury shadow, I hope so. Look, the sooner the better, right? If you need eyeglasses or anything Mercury and Gemini related, this is the time, the last little bit of where it is in its normal phase before it goes into that mystical trip called Mercury retrograde. So anyway, like I said, that'll peak Sunday. But this week, there's a really, it's going to start a really interesting month and several months, because as I said in the previous podcast before the last, was Mars is now entering zero Gemini, right? And this is where it's going to stay for 7 months. It's very big. This is the last huge, big, important transit of the year. Very, very important in terms of many, many things. I'll be getting deeper into it on its own with guest speakers. But just for now, just to say that, the fact that it's even more highlighted because the sun will be going into Virgo on Monday, the 22nd. The sun enters 0 Virgo. So there is a square, automatically there's a square with Mars, and it's going to perfect next Saturday, the 27th, but we'll feel that tension, and that tension and the intention to take action will be building. And so the sun into Virgo will be in Mercury's temple, right? Temple of Mercury. Mercury rules Gemini and Virgo. So Mars is going to be in the temple in Gemini, temple of Mercury, sun in Virgo, temple of Mercury, same thing, but just different aspects. So Mars in Gemini is like, okay, it's been in that chill Taurus in its detriment, right? It's not in domicile in the sign of Taurus, right? And it's been very, very chill, and learning to just take it easy in a slow, steady, earthy rhythm, steady and reliable, moving slowly, right, in that Taurus. Well, bang, as soon as it goes to Gemini, it's like caffeine. If you give your children too much caffeine or chocolate, don't give your children caffeine, right? They're built within the DNA. Boom, 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 boom. So you might feel yourself feeling agitated or anxious, mentally anxious around getting things done. Mars, the action planet, right? Getting things done. So you might feel like it's a roller coaster, because remember that 0 degrees of a sign is always really important. It's going to give you the whole preview of coming attractions of the Gemini archetype. And that's, like I said, especially important now because Mars is going to retrograde in Gemini, and then it will go forward again in January 12th. So for the next 7 months, not until March, almost like where spring, only right at the entrance to spring is when it's finally going to leave Gemini. So we're going to be living with this roommate, right, for quite some time. So we want to make friends with it. What else do you do with Mars? So anyway, let me just check how many days Mars is going to be at that 0 degree point. So I'll tell you the length of that preview, that coming attraction. Just a second. Okay, yeah, I forgot. I'm so used to these Saturn, Uranus, taking weeks at that stationary or that a certain degree. But yeah, I forgot. Hello, Mars. It's only going to be for a day. So the 20th to the 21st, like late Sunday night Eastern time, the 21st is when it'll go to 1 degree of Gemini. But that, like, watch what happens in your life from this from over the weekend, with Saturday, Sunday, even though I know this technically is for the week of the 21st on, but just look and see what is going on over the weekend in terms of your everything about your ideas, your connections, your goals regarding writing and communicating and listening and speaking and education, and all of those, because that 0 degree gives us that, it's like the acorn, contains the entire oak tree. So where we're going and where we're not going, and because it'll go retrograde. So that'll give us it's a juicy little preview. Okay, so that's 0 degrees. And so the sun going into Virgo, with Mars, we'll be squaring the sun, right? And it'll peak next Saturday. So there's, like I said earlier, there's that tension, and it's like the mind, the rational mind squaring off with the intuitive mind. Now Mars in the sign of Gemini is an overcoming square. So it's going to predominate with that influence. It'll have more of an influence, so that the urge to move and get things done, and especially come out of Taurus, it's like, okay, come on, let's step it up, breaks over, back to work. Like Mars, very impatient, and around Gemini, very much about commerce, merchants, buying, selling, pushing it, right, aggressively conquering and wanting to win, and all of those things. But then when the sun going into Virgo is like, slow down. Virgo's mutable earth. Gemini's mutable air. So the intellect is having an argument with and wants attention and wants action with that part of ourselves, the sun in Virgo, shining a light on health, on well-being, on self-care. The sun in Virgo. Virgo season is always about these things, paying attention to the details, being discerning and discriminating, taking care of our nutrition, cleaning up our act, cleaning up and cleaning out, right? It's a great time for cleaning and separating the wheat from the chaff, as the harvest, when you think about the agricultural harvest in the Northern Hemisphere, where Virgo is about, having the big agricultural, the fruits of one's labor of growing over the summer months, and then now we harvest those things and now we count them, like think of Virgo being like the bean counters, right? And being reliable and practical wisdom around this bounty. So we're looking and analyzing and breaking things down and digesting ideas. Literally digestion isn't a key thing because Virgo rules the colon. So, where I would say, there might be this, we have to be careful that we're not with this Mars square Saturn, Mars square the sun, sorry. We might feel, there might be this conflict around, feeling like the pressure to get things done, but then knowing that you also have to slow down. So it's this argument about, yes, it's important to move forward and have goals, but to not at the expense of. So trying to work that out, what action needs to be taken, so that we can have health and well-being and downtime in the forest, right? I love Virgo green. It's all about wood and small pets and nature and things of that type. So again, that dramatic tension will build through the week, and hopefully, we won't be, we don't want to get mentally exhausted, right? There's that Mars and Gemini can bring that about. So we want to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves, and self-care is always very, very important, especially this week. All right. So, but why does this energy or these themes last longer than just this week when it's squaring? Well, also the sun all month, the sun will be in Virgo, and of course Mars will be there for many, many months. So they're in these squared signs. So maybe not by degree, but certainly through the month until September 22nd, when the sun goes into Libra, they're going to be, those themes will be still resounding, and so we want to pay attention to this Mercury and Mars for sure at this time. And especially, again, through these next several months, because Mercury, Mars being in the sign in Mercury's temple for all that time, we really want to get comfortable and understand the Mercury archetype, the Mars archetype, about aggression and movement and action and leadership and starting things. And I think about the sickle cutting through the forest, right? And also maybe taking a new direction with ideas and being open to. In Gemini, it's about being open to new ideas and exploring and allowing oneself to move forward with curiosity and to change one's mind, and so that those are all qualities that we'll be engaging with as the months go on. So, like, again, lots more to share when we go more in depth with this, delineating it, but you get the idea that these themes, Mercury and Mars, are going to figure very largely in the collective too. And so and then, we have the eclipses coming up, and we have the Taurus and Scorpio, and we also have the with the retrograde of Mercury and Mercury going retrograde, right? And it'll start in Libra, but it'll go back into its domicile in Virgo, which is, again, Mercury's domicile. So there's more Mercury and influence. So there's a lot about changing one's mind, reflecting on our thinking, our process, our attitudes, our beliefs, things of that nature. So big themes, right? All right. So that's Sun into Virgo with that dance with Mars. Then Wednesday, August 24th, Uranus will finally station retrograde. It's been at 18 degrees for several weeks now, slow moving planet. And it will be retrograde from August 24th until January 22nd. So January is going to be an interesting month because Mars and Uranus will both go forward within a week of each other. Mars will station direct around January 12th, and then about 10 days later, Uranus will station direct. And Uranus at the 18 degrees, 54 minutes of Taurus, what we're doing when Uranus goes retrograde, you have to remember too, outer planets, especially it's only like 40% of the time that Uranus retrogrades around 40% of the time. So it's not as big a deal as Mercury or Mars going retrograde, but it's still important. And it's a place where we check ourselves regarding our values, everything related to Taurus, our earth, the environment, the values, the things that we hold dear, our finances, stock market, and Uranus retrograde is like all the sudden movement and all the innovation and the change. Think about the money system and AI and digital currency, cashless society, digital currency, crypto, all of those conversations, very forward movement, and even like embodying astrology. And also when I think about Uranus and Taurus, it's like, let me think, hold on. Well, really, how are we transforming, how we're checking our progress regarding, are we becoming more enlightened and more, our values more in alignment with the future? One of the things I thought of was, what kind of carbon footprint are we leaving? I put these, where is my note about that? We're reflecting on changes in maybe it's also certainly about getting out of one's comfort zone. And if we've had, floods or things like that have happened, or catastrophic changes to our financial situation, talk to me about, at least 14 vet visits. Yes, unbelievable. I've just been through I made it through, but man, it was very, very draining. But, Uranus going retrograde in Taurus will challenge us to reflect and look at the progress of are we really as self-realized as we say we want to be? Are we really embodying those values that we know will provide liberation for us? Are we letting go of old stuck stories that have kept us enslaved? Have we been able to break the chains of that? I'm thinking too of the values of our earth values. Do they reflect, do they honor the earth? I just read in the news that there's this, they're bringing back supersonic jets. Well, I remember the Concorde as a teenager, and well into my, early adult years, the Concorde would fly to New York to Paris, New York to London in like 3 hours. It's like, oh my God, that was like living in Manhattan. It took you longer to get to the Hamptons than it did to go to London on the Long Island Expressway. For anybody who's lived on Long Island or knows the world's largest parking lot. Anyway, but guess what? They dropped that several years ago. They dropped the Concorde. They no longer did it. It was like $3,000 at least, or $5,000 for like a ride on to get to London in 3 hours. Well, they're bringing back the supersonic jet. Well, oh my goodness, right? Innovation, but what about the carbon footprint? So, maybe we want to rethink this thing, guys. I mean, unless that supersonic jet can fly on like solar powered cells, which, it won't right now because that's years away. There was this Strato launch that launched, about 6 years ago. And it was like the world's largest airplane, or this huge wingspan. It was like 2 airplane cabins and extended by a wing on each side and a wing in the middle. And the wingspan was as large as like a 747. But it went around the world, and it took, a few years, because it was very slow. It only flew at like 50 miles an hour, but it had solar cells, and it was all powered. It was like an Orville Wright moment. By the way, today is Orville Wright's birthday. Happy birthday, Orville Wright. But this particular plane with solar powered cells, was able to fly. And so, yes, in the future they will. But, this is a time with Uranus retrograde in Taurus is, are we really honoring that? Think about the food supply. Like, I can't stand it when I have to go to Walmart or wherever, the supermarket. I can't even stand Walmart. I very, very rarely go there because I just don't like it. But anywhere, all the supermarkets carry right now, everything's in plastic. Peaches, nectarines, mango, everything's in this dang plastic bag, and it's just upsetting. It's like you can almost, it's so hard to find fruit now that's not in a plastic bag, unless you go to a farmer's market. So all hail farmers markets, high five. So this is a place where we get to check our connections with that, and what progress are we making, and make some tweaks. So that's Uranus retrograde. And certainly with the earth as well, with the environment, money systems, all of those things. Trauma too, because this is going to station, I want to make sure this is correct, hold on. So in early in January 22nd, it's going to go direct with this conjunct this fixed star called Menkar at 14 degrees of Taurus. Menkar is considered, it's associated with like things, afflictions of the throat, or trouble or disease of the throat, or also could be, injury, just, according to the, these very, they do sound very, it's difficult finding really empowering fixed star information. You got to go to like Diana Rosenberg. She's like the most awesome authority on fixed stars. But Menkar is often historically been associated with, unjustified enmities, a sudden emergence of deep unconscious issues. So I think about trauma. So this is an opportunity to really look and see. And certainly Uranus rules trauma and catastrophe and chaos. And so again, where has that been locked up in our body? So the work of Gabor Mate would be excellent if you haven't seen his documentary on trauma. I have not personally, but I've heard nothing but good things about it from friends who have. Gabor Mate, M-A-T-E. I think he's Argentinian, but anyway, he's done like phenomenal work around trauma and releasing trauma. So this is a really big conversation to be having in the next 5 months. Where in our bodies is that stored, and what do we have trauma about? Whatever house Uranus is in at the 18 degrees of Taurus, wherever that is in your chart is where you may have some subconscious trauma issues. And so this will be an opportunity to free yourself from that. All right, so that's Wednesday, the 24th. Then Thursday, the 25th, Mercury leaves its domicile in Virgo and goes into Libra. Well, Libra is the peacemaker. Okay, it loses some dignity because it's leaving its domicile. It's not an exile or anything in Libra. It's perfectly lovely, pleasant. This is when our thoughts and ideas and speech and connections are going to take on a more diplomatic aspect with Libra, the peacemaker, the harmony bringer, the one who's diplomatic and wants agreement with everything. So our connections and contacts will take on that flavor. That is until Mercury will leave Libra on October 29th. So from the 25th to October 29th, it'll go, well, I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Mercury's in Libra, it'll retrograde at 8 degrees of Libra, go back to like 28 or 24 Virgo, and then it will move forward again. So it won't leave back into Libra, and it won't leave Libra until October 29th. So it'll have a little dip into Virgo, but mostly it'll be in the sign of Libra. So we get to, and then again, when it retrogrades in Libra, we'll be revisiting our relationships with our loved ones. And do we bring peace and harmony in our attitudes and our speaking and listening to others? Do we show respect? Do we have a generosity of listening? These are things that, will come up for us. Or are we too critical? But we can talk about Mercury retrograde separately in another talk, but you get the idea. Okay, Saturday, like I said, by Saturday the 27th, Mars will come into that exact square with the sun that I talked earlier about. And then we have the last thing I'm going to say today is the new moon. We finish the week with the new moon in Virgo at 4 degrees, 3 minutes of Virgo, and sun and moon in that sign. So this is a new beginning, and this is in the temple of Mercury, but it is the nighttime feminine mutable earth. So it's feminine and earth and intuitive side of Mercury. So it's being very discriminating and being intuitively discriminating and taking really good care and efficiency and attention and devotion to details and service and humility, right? Virgo is very much about service with humility, humble servant. A real servant is somebody who is humble and desires to help and, doesn't want the attention. That was a Leo thing, right? It's like, la, 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 here I am. Well, it's like, great. The sun in Leo going into Virgo, the new moon in Virgo, it's like, okay, we've established ourselves. And now what do we do with all this light? Well, let's go bring it to others. Let's go serve people. Let's take it out there and do something useful and practical with it. It's very Virgoan, right? To be practical. So mutable earth, the change of seasons, right? It's a mutable sign. It represents the change of season from summer into fall in the Northern Hemisphere, and from it's like, hello, I can't speak the summer, from summer into fall, and then from fall into summer. From summer into fall, and then from spring into summer. Duh, I can't, flipping myself upside down for everyone in the Southern Hemisphere. So it's that change of seasons, and that's the mutable change, and things moving forward from the equinoxes, right? We're going to have our solstice in September. It's not solstice. Hello. Mercury opposite Neptune. I can't even speak today. In our equinox, right? Well, that's when the Earth, the days and nights are going to be the exact same length, reaches equinox, and that's like about the 3rd week of September. So the new moon in Virgo, again, think about God, goddess is in the details. That's the old saying, God is in the details. Service, well-being, self-care, health, diet, exercise. Our mental health is going to be a big deal. Service-based, think about volunteering or nursing or things that involve the care of others, taking care of the earth, being a steward of the earth. Maybe you want to volunteer, and some fun Virgo activities might be, volunteering and being maybe a park, like a volunteer ranger in a forest, or forest ranger, or assisting in some kind of environmental capacity, and helping out maybe somebody with harvesting their crops, or working in that way. Doing small tasks very well and beautifully. I remember, excuse me, Mother Teresa, she talked about that. Do everything very like this devotion to the divine, and Eckhart Tolle, he was the one that said, and this really was I have to say, this was a really big breakthrough for me. I read this in his book, A New Earth. He said, the way to get, I don't know how to, the exact words, but the way to get something going and to really is to just do small things really well. So let's say you want to have, 1 million followers on YouTube. Like, wouldn't that be great? Well, because like sometimes we feel so overwhelmed that we get too critical of ourselves, right? The shadow Virgo, overthinking, and getting too deep in the weeds with details. How is this going to happen? But with knowing that all it takes is just, let's say you have 2 followers or 1 on your YouTube channel or your social media platform, and it's like, oh, it's your sister, it's like, gee, don't criticize, take care of that 1 or 2 people exquisitely, because that's all that matters. It's not about the numbers, it's just how well we serve. And if we are perfect in that service, then it's a perfect little model and the perfection of that is as small and humble as it may be, it's perfect. It's perfect in its humility, not because it has to be numbers, right? It's not like in our, in our American culture, everything is like, oh, everything's got to be bigger and better and faster and smoother and new and improved. And it's like, well, how about if we just did one thing really well? And in the smallest number of people. So those are ideas that we might want to, take with us as we go into Virgo season. I remember reading, and it blew me away, but it really gave me a lot of insight. Eckhart talked also in the book about when he started his teachings and all, he became, fully enlightened, and he had this outrageous life-changing experience, which if you don't know about, you can read about it. But he said that he only had a small group, a circle of like 6 or 10 people, like in his living room. That's where he started, and he talked to them every week, and they gathered in his living room. And do you know how long they gathered in his living room? You'd think, wow, somebody like him, like word would travel fast, and within a month he'd be on like some big stage. Hell no. 10 years. 10 years. He was there 10 years in that little living room with his little talks with a little group of people. But see, he did it exquisitely, and he did it perfectly and well, and he took care of that group, and that's all that matters. And once you get that, it's like the yogurt starter culture, you get that perfect culture going, and then it grows, right? But first you got to handle it at the most minute place, right? And then it grows, and it grows well. So those are just thoughts I have about Virgo. And anyway, yeah, I think that's all for now. I hope you have enjoyed this. So that new moon, the new moon in Virgo, we'll have the full moon, of course, in Pisces, the opposite sign. So these new projects, new beginnings regarding our health, service, and such, peaking at the full moon. The fruit of whatever seeds we lay on the new moon will, of course, peak at the full moon, and we get to check in with that, and and have that the counterbalance. Is this in alignment? Full moon in Pisces. Or are we getting too lost in things, and maybe we need to come back to some kind of equilibrium. But anyway, so that's all for today, and I hope you have enjoyed this, and it's always great to hear what you have to say, and any comments, questions, please either email me, or you can leave a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Yay, it always helps the channel. So thank you so much for all of your love and support, and it's a joy being here, and we'll see you next time. Okay, this is Irlianna Samsara, StarSound Speaks, StarSoundastrology.com. Thank you all for listening. Namaste.